Welcome to Americana Archives. Today's headline is the steam fire engine's 58 years. The subheadline says, Cincinnati gave it to the world, and Boston was the second city to adopt it. It says, the days of the steam fire engine are numbered, according to many predictions and indications. Motor-operated apparatus is likely to take its place in the largest cities in this country, as has already happened in Paris and other foreign cities. It will be many years, though, before steam fire engines are entirely superseded by motor engines, if such a thing ever occurs. When steam fire engines came into general use 50 years ago, it was predicted that they would quickly supersede hand-operated engines. And when chemical engines were introduced in the early 70s, a similar prediction was made regarding these. But a great many hand engines are still in service in every state of the Union, and will be for many years to come, as they are better adapted for some villages than any other kind of apparatus. The same thing is likely to be true of steam fire engines. For 2 centuries, hand-operated fire engines were used here and abroad. They were of the bucket-filling pattern until the hose came into use in 1818 and suction engines were invented in 1822. The first steam fire engine was made in London in 1829 from plans made by Captain John Ericsson of Monitor fame. It was a failure. Paul Hodge of New York was the next to design and construct a steam fire engine in 1841. This engine was made for the insurance companies of New York. It was impracticable for fire service, owing chiefly to its great weight of 8 tons and to its insufficient steaming capacity. The volunteer fire companies would not operate it. Pearl Hose Company 28, located at Chambers and Center Streets, of which George T. Hope, an insurance man, was foreman, finally consented to give it a trial and used it for several months with partial success. It ended its career as a successful stationary engine in a box factory. The next and first successful steam fire engine was invented by Moses Latta of Cincinnati and constructed by his brothers, proprietors of a machine shop in that city. The invention and construction of the engine, its success in service at fires, and the organization of paid fire departments, which it made possible, are due to Miles Greenwood, for some years chief of the Cincinnati Fire Department and one of the leading businessmen of that city. The Cincinnati Fire Department in 1852 consisted of 15 volunteer hand engine companies with a total membership of about 1,500 men and boys. Each company owned its apparatus and equipment, and through a central organization had absolute control over the department's affairs. The department had fallen into bad repute. Fights between companies at fires were a frequent occurrence. Sundays were looked upon as a day for firemen's riots, and the fire stations were centers of disorder. The better class of people were dissatisfied with the department. Miles Greenwood saw the remedy for the fire department evils in steam fire engines. He had been a volunteer fireman for some years, and president of the Firemen's Association, which controlled the department in its better days. He was then 46, and the wealthy proprietor of a large iron foundry. He arranged with Mr. Latta to construct an experimental engine. It was a success, and the city council immediately appropriated $10,000 for the construction of a complete engine for service. Mr. Latta started work on the new engine in March of 1852. Its first trial took place on New Year's Day, 1853. It was a success and went into commission on that day. This engine, which was named Uncle Joe Ross in honor of Alderman Joseph Ross, who introduced the order for its construction, cost $8,000 and was the heaviest fire engine ever made, weighing 13 tons. It was 22 feet long, 8 feet high, had 2 6-inch pumps and 10-inch steam cylinders, and its capacity was 1,000 gallons a minute. It was a self-propelling engine of the locomotive pattern, with 1 front and 2 rear wheels. The rear wheels were used for flywheels if necessary. 4 horses were used to draw it until sufficient steam was generated to drive it and to steer it. It rendered excellent service in many fires until December 6, 1855, when its boiler exploded, killing its engineer and ending its short successful career in a junk heap. A defective flue caused the explosion. When the engine was ready for service, another problem confronted the city authorities: how to get it into use. The volunteer firemen refused to handle it and threatened to destroy it at its first fire. They actually did try to destroy it, but citizens in large numbers rallied to its rescue and saved it from injury. The volunteer firemen, seeing that the people were against them, submitted to the inevitable and never again attempted to injure it. The new engine having demonstrated superiority at its first few fires, citizens offered to subscribe the amount necessary to procure another, provided the city council would purchase a third engine at the same time. This was done, and 2 more steam fire engines were added to the department before the end of the year. The 2 new engines were named Citizen's Gift and A.B. Latta and cost $9,500 each. The last hand engine in the department was retired from service March 1st, 1861. Boston, which was the second city to possess a steam fire engine in 1855, was the first entirely to change its engines from hand to steam. Its last hand engine went out of commission September 17, 1860. The success of the first steam engine at Cincinnati resulted in the reorganization of the fire department on April 1, 1853, 3 months after the steam engine went into commission, with a paid force in place of volunteers. The volunteer firemen opposed the change, but it was adopted by a large majority. Miles Greenwood was elected chief of the new department and had absolute authority to reorganize it as he wished. The success of the department depended largely upon its chief, and no ordinary man could succeed under the existing conditions. A brave, fearless man, an experienced fireman, an able commander and executive officer was necessary, and Miles Greenwood possessed the required qualifications. Chief Greenwood received a salary of $1,000 a year, furnished $2,000 bonds, and devoted his entire time to the duties of the place. He employed an assistant at a salary of $1,500 a year to conduct his private business. His salary for the first year, Chief Greenwood presented to the Mechanics' Institute. For the first 3 months of the paid department, the city made no appropriation for its maintenance, and Chief Greenwood advanced $15,000 to meet expenses, which was subsequently repaid to him. Each company of the paid force consisted of an engineer and stoker, a driver, and a horseman, who were full paid and devoted their entire time to the department. The company officers and other members, 15 in all, were callmen and were paid only for the time they spent on duty at fires and alarms. All the members became full paid in 1873. This was the first full paid force fire department. New York was the first city to have an entire full paid force fire department in 1865. The new Cincinnati paid system and the steam fire engines were a success from the start. The evils of the volunteer force came to a quick end. To the question of a committee who went to Cincinnati from an eastern city to examine the new engine as to what its principal merits were, Chief Greenwood replied, "First, it never gets drunk. Second, it never throws brickbats, and the only drawback connected with it is that it cannot vote." Chief Greenwood, who served for 2 years and made a complete success of steam fire engines and a paid fire department, died November 6, 1885. Boston was the first city after Cincinnati to procure a steam fire engine, which was made in Cincinnati and named Miles Greenwood, in honor of the father of steam fire engines and paid fire departments. When en route from Cincinnati to Boston, the Miles Greenwood was exhibited and operated at Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York. Its New York exhibition took place in City Hall Park, February 8, 1855, in the presence of many thousands of spectators. The old hay wagon, the most powerful hand engine in the department, operated by Exempt Engine Company 42, and now in service at the Jeffersonville, Indiana Army Barracks, competed with it in a horizontal playing contest. The hand engine made the best play, 189 feet. The steamer played 182 feet. The crowd was much pleased with the result, and cheer after cheer rent the air for the old hay wagon. In another contest, the hand engine was again the winner, this time by about 15 feet. In a perpendicular playing contest over the City Hall cupola, the hand engine also won. But in its staying power, the steamer was much the superior. The result of this exhibition was an appropriation by the City Council in 1856 for 2 steam fire engines, which were constructed in this city and cost $17,000. These were first used in service at a fire in Duane Street, January 17, 1859. They were a partial success. The first New York fire company to possess a steam fire engine was Manhattan Engine Company 8, located in Ludlow Street. The engine was first used at a fire in Rivington Street on June 10, 1859. Others followed in rapid succession, and all the paid engine companies in the city had steam engines in 1865, the last year of the volunteer department. Philadelphia was the third city to possess a steam fire engine in 1855, followed by New Orleans the same year, St. Louis, Louisville, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Ohio, and Seneca Falls, New York in 1857. Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, New York, Providence, Manchester, New Hampshire, Fall River, Massachusetts, and Portland, Maine in 1859, and many others in 1860. New York was the first city to possess a horseless steam fire engine in 1872, followed by Boston the same year. Detroit, Brooklyn, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin in 1874, Hartford, Connecticut in 1876, Chicago and Milwaukee in 1877, New Orleans in 1899, Pittsburgh in 1900, Portland, Maine in 1902, and Newark, New Jersey in 1906. New York had 5 in service in 1874. Boston, Hartford, Newark, Pittsburgh, and Portland are the only cities that now use them. New York was the first city to possess a chemical fire engine in 1872, and is the only large city that does not now use them extensively. Newton, Massachusetts was the first to purchase a fire department automobile, a Chief's car, which went into commission on June 11, 1903. The Niagara Engine Company of New London, Connecticut was the first to possess a motor chemical engine and horse wagon, October 6, 1903. The Cincinnati Underwriters Salvage Corps was the first to have a salvage automobile in May of 1905. Springfield, Massachusetts had the first Flying Squadron automobile, September 24, 1906. Joplin, Missouri had the first pumping automobile engine, September 7, 1908. Vancouver, British Columbia, the first automobile ladder truck, September 1909. New York, the first automobile water tower, February 11, 1911, and the first motor-driven and steam-operated engine, March 20, 1911. This story came from the great state of New York. Being reported in the New York Sun of October 8, 1911. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.